Ravi Sondhi Spirit of Bangalore lecture. Those of you who are here for the first time, it's good to see you. These lectures celebrate the spirit of Bangalore. You're sort of the Paul Fernandez Bangalore in the form of lectures, if you will, to recreate a spirit and an ethos of a city that's, maybe partly left us behind, but still trying to sort of celebrate it and pay it forward. Having moved to Delhi a couple of years ago, I love Bangalore even more. Delhi has that effect. It makes you love other cities. And we have consciously, over the past years, chosen to keep these lectures light, apolitical, and spirited. There's enough politics otherwise, but then feeding your soul is also a political act. My sister Ravina, brother-in-law Sundar are here. They join me in welcoming you all. And my niece Ria and David for the first time from London. What a thrill to have you with us this evening. Incidentally, my sister and brother-in-law are celebrating 40 years of being married. 40 years with my sister, wow. We have had 3 incredible lectures previously. Chiranjeev Singh Saab is here, who set the ball rolling with a fabulous exposition on Bangalore and the partition. Thank you for being here, sir. Arundhati Nag last year on Bangalore and its theatre traditions, and of course Ram Guha on Bangalore and its booksellers, and one of whom, Mr. Murthy of Select, we lost just last week. Today's topic on Bangalore and its sporting history is particularly relevant, not just to the extended family of Bangalore that you're all part of, but to our family literally, because dad and sport in some way went together. Firstly, because of Hat-Trick Sports, which he set up in 1977 and ran for 44 years. The byline of Hat-Trick used to be the sporting people. And I've already met so many folks this evening who said they sort of bought their first cricket bat or their tennis racket or their running shoes from Hat-Trick. So he would have loved this. He was also very closely part of Friends Union Cricket Club, which is Bangalore's second oldest cricket club after BUCC. And Ram, incidentally, is an ex-Friends Union alumni, if you will, and has written about it. And it's great to see at least a couple of friends from FUCC here this evening. My dad was also an off-spinner, but the less said about that, the better. But this topic is doubly special because of our speaker. And Stanley Carvalho is a quintessential Bangalorean at heart. He's got 3 books and 1 in the pipeline. The first 3 all cover Bangalore from different dimensions. Let me make his formal introduction first. He's a journalist and a writer with 25 years of full-time reporting. He writes and edits widely. He has spent a decade in corporate journalism as also in freelancing. He spent 10 years in the UAE with leading newspapers there. He then worked with Reuters from 2006 to 2020, covering business and general news. He is currently an independent journalist, writing mainly for the Deccan Herald and the Hindu. He's also a media trainer with Reuters Foundation and teaches journalism at the Alliance University. Now comes the Bangalore part. Stanley was born in Bangalore and went to St. Germain's, old rivals, hockey rivals, and with a rich sporting tradition of their own. He then went on to the St. Joseph's Arts and Science College and holds a master's degree in economics from Karnataka University. The books which you saw on sale outside, and if you haven't had a chance as yet, please feel free to pick them up, are Bangalore Blue, a delightful collection of pieces on Bangalore, which I will dip into in just a moment, Past and Curious, and of course the book that's probably most relevant for the talk this evening, which is Playback, Sports Legends of Bangalore. And this book, which Stanley has edited and also contributed to, has delightful pieces on Bangalore's sportspersons, sportsmen and sportswomen, and goes beyond just cricket. And a couple of your subjects are in the audience this evening. As for Bangalore Blue, there is a chapter in a piece called Ma Baker that Stanley has written himself, apart from having edited the book, where he speaks of the folks who would swing by home back in the days, right? The rock salt man who would sell upu, and the ice candy man, and the mosquito net seller, the Kashmiri carpet seller, a man who carried ducks. The only ducks I knew were the ones I got in school playing cricket, but these are different ducks. The tree climber and the Radiwala. And he doesn't stop there. And let me quote one passage which tells you how much Bangalore is part of Stanley's sort of literally his blood. And I quote, if you thought so many visitors were too much, hold on. Around 3:30 or 4 p.m., to rouse the household from its afternoon snooze was a voice that sang Ma Baker. Not Bonnie M's male lead singer, but the neighborhood baker, calling out to the lady of the house, Ma Baker. He brought hot buns, bread, tea biscuits, and assorted goodies. Close on his heels was the postman on his second round. Some ways of Bangalore that's disappeared but stays alive through the writing of Stanley and other friends who continue to love Bangalore. His latest book is a collection of middles called Musings of a Middleman in the pipeline, I believe, should be out shortly. But importantly, and as Prem Koshi and I were just discussing the other day, Stanley is a Koshiite, which seems to be an added unsaid criterion to be invited to these lectures. And lastly, before I hand over the floor, Stan also writes these delightful pieces every weekend. And his last one was on Bidu Abhaya and his sort of connection with Bangalore and his incredible musical trajectory. But the most interesting thing was that when he was 16, he started off a band called the Trojans at Three Aces. And Three Aces was my dad's restaurant. So in every which way, there could be no one better to be speaking this evening, and I'm very deeply joyous to invite on stage Stanley Carvalho.
Oof. It feels like I'm at the starting line of a marathon race, and I'm sure I'll need some water and cheering, hopefully, to reach the finish line. Um, Thank you, Aditya, for that very long introduction. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Um, when Aditya phoned me requesting me to deliver the fourth Ravi Sondhi Memorial Lecture, I was taken aback, to be honest. I wondered why me. As he said, the three earlier speakers were Mr. Chiranjeev Singh, Mr. Ram Guha, and Ms. Arundhati Nag. All three towering figures, achievers in their own right. And so I told Aditya, I'll think about it and can I get back? So a couple of days later, when we met at Koshi's, I asked Aditya what made him choose me. He looked me in the eye and in his inimitable manner said, Stanley, you're a true blue Bangalorean. I was touched and I accepted. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to be a Bangalorean and a true blue Bangalorean at that. I passionately feel for this city where I was born and raised and carried it with me wherever I went. So as the famous saying goes, you can get out of Bangalore, but you can never get the Bangalore out of you. That's me. I'm honored and privileged to stand here today to speak on the sporting history of Bangalore, which also includes the sporting culture and the pioneering sportspersons of Bangalore who brought laurels to our city, state, and country, but largely forgotten. And I'm so glad that we have some of those present here today. Coming from a family of sportspersons and as an unapologetic sports buff, it gives me joy and pride to dwell on a topic that sits nicely with Ravi Sondhi's memory. Also a true blue Bangalorean, as Aditya said, a sports lover, a patron of sports, who inspired hundreds of cricketers and numerous sportspersons. Don't we all know about that iconic sports goods shop that was started in the 70s by Ravi Sondhi? Hat trick. As grateful and loving children, Aditya and Ravina are perpetuating the memory of their dear father through these annual lectures. Last year, they completed a hat trick. No pun intended, please. They completed a hat trick with 3 successive lectures. Well done, Aditya and Ravina. And this is the 4th. And I'm sure the lectures will continue apace. So, on to today's subject. Have you all wondered how Bangalore, a tier 2 city, a sleepy pensioner's paradise, spawned so many national, international sporting champions before and after independence? Take any sporting discipline: cricket, hockey, football, tennis, badminton, even indigenous sports such as kho-kho and kabaddi. Bangalore's sportspersons have historically shown at the national and international levels. Well, there may be many factors contributing to that, but and I'll dwell on that shortly. But the fact is, Bangalore's stellar achievements and its exceptional and vibrant sporting culture hasn't got the exposure or attention that some other sectors have got, such as IT, biotech, microbreweries, education, etc., etc. I hope that changes and Bangalore gets recognized for its many sporting accomplishments. Ladies and gentlemen, Bangalore has a rich and hoary history of sports dating back to the 19th century. And much credit must be attributed to the British as well as the missionaries who came to Bangalore in the 1800s. It was these who laid the foundations, who were instrumental in creating the foundation for sports in Bangalore. So, when you go back in time, it all began in the 1800s when the British shifted their cantonment from Srirangapatna to Bangalore. Slowly, they began developing the city, building distinct neighborhoods, buildings, infrastructure, sports facilities, and all of that. And that was more to cater to the British citizens. But it indirectly also benefited the Indians living here. And it helped Bangalore grow as a commercial and educational center. Interestingly, around the same time, the missionaries landed in Bangalore. And they set up these very good schools in different parts of Bangalore. Now, when you go back to 1842, one of the earliest schools that the missionaries set up was Mitralaya Girls High School in 1842. And then you had St. John's High School in Cleveland Town, and nearby there, Goodwill Girls High School. And then in 1854, you had Sacred Heart Girls High School. After that, St. Joseph's Boys High School, 1858, Bishop Cotton Boys High School, 1865, Cathedral High School, 1866, and some of the other schools came into being almost at the same time. And in the city, you had Mahila Seva Samaj, which came into being in the early 1900s, and then St. Teresa's Convent in Chamrajpet around 1914. But let's not forget that it was all these schools that produced some of India's most acclaimed sports persons. And it was these schools that laid the foundation for a balanced education which had academics alongside sports, compulsory PT, ample infrastructure facilities for playing, dedicated coaches, and whatever little encouragement the schools could give was possibly given. And these schools, started having their annual sports meets. They started having inter-school, inter-club matches, tournaments, and athletic events. And all this enhanced the popularity of sports in Bangalore at a very basic level, which was at the school level. And that was how it seeded the sports culture in Bangalore. And as the city began to evolve and grow, this sports culture also sort of just spread around and began to grow and flourish. And after all these years, I think we must be proud that this sports culture, which began many, many years ago, has seeded deep into Bangalore's roots. And which is why I think Bangalore has a unique, a distinctive ethos and values when it comes to sports. Now, when one talks about the sporting history of Bangalore, it needs highlighting three significant disciplines that were a big part of the sporting culture in the 1800s and 1900s. Those were golf, boxing, and polo. One of the oldest sporting institutions of Bangalore is the Bangalore Golf Club. I'm sure some of you may know about it, but we Bangaloreans can be hugely proud of this Bangalore Golf Club because of its old, rich, and venerable history. It started in 1876 with a 12-hole golf course. And it is known to be one of the oldest outside Britain. And its claim also to golfing history is that lies in the fact that it is one of the oldest golf clubs in continuous operation outside of Britain. And when this club started in 1876, it wasn't just for leisure or pastime. Within 2 years of its inception, they started having tournaments. And that's another feather in the cap of this club. Today, of course, Bangalore has a lot of golf clubs, big and small, but the Bangalore Golf Club holds its own as the oldest and one of the most prestigious. So let's move on from slow and relaxed golfing to fast and furious boxing. Like golf, boxing also has an old history rooted during the British colonial days. So boxing began as a sport just among the British troops that were stationed here in Bangalore and largely among the British soldiers who were here. But by the early 1900s, the game became very popular. And, Bangalore started attracting a lot of international boxers. It's hard to believe, but a lot of international boxers came for actual boxing matches in Bangalore. And where do you think these boxing matches took place initially? And or rather, the most or the best venue, it was called the Opera House, but today, what is the Opera Theatre at the intersection of Brigade Road and Residency Road? That was a boxing arena in the late 1800s and 1900s. I can see Prem shaking his head. I'm sure he knows about it quite a bit. um, so boxing became quite a mania here, particularly in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And, a lot of boxers from Bangalore took to the game. And there were regular matches or bouts between these boxers, not just at the Opera House. There were other venues, for instance, the Globe Theatre, Liberty Theatre on MG Road. And then there was another Hollywood City Stadium opposite the BRV Theatre. All these have disappeared now. And boxing matches were also held at the Sullivan Police Grounds. And mind you, they attracted huge crowds. It was a very popular sport. So a couple of decades before Prasanna, Chandrasekhar, Kirmani, Vishwanath, Brijesh Patel, Roger Binny, Anil Kumble, or Rahul Dravid, became sports icons, and cricket was the reigning passion of Bangalore. It was the Bangalore's poster boys were, these prize fighters, boxers such as Gunboat Jack and Young Tali. These are names that sound a little outlandish, but they were some of the best boxers of the time, not only in India, but also in Asia. I'll just read a brief from a report of an English newspaper in September 1943. It just gives us a sense of what boxing was in Bangalore. I quote, "It is doubtful if in any other city in India, boxing is kept up to such a high pitch as in Bangalore. It looks as though the art of self-defense is about the biggest sporting draw in the station. Fans defy the weather and other inconveniences to see a really good fight." That was nearly a century ago. It is the spirit of Bangalore. So also the popularity of Bangalore was due to another reason. And I just want to briefly mention about this family that was running a little tabloid. And they covered boxing matches, they popularized boxing, and whatever proceeds were collected from the sale of that tabloid was sent to the war fund. And remember, all this is during the world wars. So it was sent to the war fund or to the Red Cross. And I think that was commendable. I'd like to talk just a little bit about these two legendary boxers of Bangalore, Gunboat Jack and Arthur Suarez, because in a way, their stories do tell us quite a bit about the fascinating yet fleeting history of Bangalore, particularly boxing. So some of you must have heard about Gunboat Jack. He was an Afro-American boxer who was an American seaman, and he dived off the ship in Madras. So he got the name Gunboat. And because of his tendency to, engage in street fights with a car jack, the name Jack stuck to him. So he got the name Gunboat Jack. But he was renowned for his superb technique, and he could beat any of the best boxers of the time, and also because of his exciting crowd-pleasing stunts. But sadly, he fell on bad days, and due to his unrestrained and brash life, he went broke. So where did this boxer next go? he became a bouncer at none other than Basco's Bar on Brigade Road. Some of you who are 60 plus, 70 or even older will remember Basco's Bar. It was known for something else too, but a person like Gunboat Jack was an excellent bouncer to stand at such a place. So, he was there for some years, but after that, I think his boxing career ended and he gave up that job. Sadly, he used to be sitting with a large hat on Brigade Road on a little stool, holding a Bible and even preaching. And then he was taken back to America. I think his sister helped him to come back to America and he went back. So that was the last we heard of him. The other legendary boxer I wanted to talk about is Arthur Suarez from the famous Suarez family of Benson Town. All those famous sisters, Marjorie, Dina, Syme, and everyone. Arthur Suarez was a great boxer from that family who went on to become the local champion at the very young age of 14. And from there on, there was no looking back. He started winning South India championships in the lightweight and middleweight categories. And he also went on to win the All India categories. From there, he went on to win championships in Burma, Malaysia, and Singapore. So that's about those two boxers. And then with the end of the Second World War in 45 and India's independence in 47, one would have thought boxing, it marked the end of boxing or boxing just disappeared. But no, it carried on quite quietly within the walls of some schools in Bangalore, as well as the Madras Engineering Group, MEG. MEG was a great center and training for many of these sappers or thambis, they were called. And many of them went on to become very good boxers, even at the national and international levels. You had boxers like Muniswamy Velu, Isaac Amaldas, C.C. Machaya. They were all national and Olympian boxers. There was also another well-known boxer of the time, Ganapati Manoharan. And Ganapati Manoharan and Amaldas had the good fortune of having a bout with none other than Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali in Delhi in 1980. And then there was another boxer called M. Ranganathan, who was called Tokyo Ranganathan, because he had gone for the Southeast Asian Boxing Championships in Tokyo in 1956. And because of his skillful technique in boxing, the Crown Prince of Japan invited him to meet him and wanted to talk to him. And so that became big news of the time. It appeared in all the papers. And when he came to Bangalore, they began calling him Tokyo Ranganathan. And that name stuck to him. And I did mention about boxing in schools, right? We had boxing in St. Germain's, where I studied. And I know there was boxing even in some of the other schools. It was scary, and most of us would try, especially the skinny small ones, would try avoid having a bout at all. But it was compulsory. But some years down the line, I think in the early 70s, boxing was banned in schools because a boy from Bishop Cotton School died after a boxing match. Correct me if I'm wrong, Aditya, because Aditya has written a book on Bishop Cotton School, and he will be the best person to know. So today, Bangalore has the White Corner Boxing Academy, and hopefully, we'll have many more boxers from Bangalore who'll hit the national headlines and regain that lost glory that we had. Quickly on to polo. I think it could surprise many of us. I too was surprised that this elitist kind of sport, polo, was played in Bangalore and introduced by the Bangalore Turf Club as early as 1920. And there were regular polo matches at the Polo Pavilion and Polo Grounds, which is now called the Agram Grounds near the ASC Centre South. And that's partly because Bangalore's moderate climate attracted a lot of polo players, polo matches, and it just happened. There was this whole polo tournament that used to take place right through the year. And I also sort of came across this little nugget of information about Bangalore Polo Club being initially located in Domlur, because the Bangalore horse racetrack was in Domlur before it shifted to opposite West End in the early 1900s. But even now, polo matches continue to take place at the Agram Polo Grounds. And some of the old timers told me that they remember seeing polo matches on cycles, not horseback, cycles in the ground, the police reserve grounds opposite BRV Theatre. I just hope polo on cycles come back. It's an interesting game to play. So that's about polo. Briefly, I mean, I have to go to this old, very ancient sport, even older, dating back to times even before the British came, and that is wrestling or kusti. As early as, this particular sport is even written about, you read it in the Mahabharata, and it dates back to many, many years, centuries ago. But mud wrestling was a very popular sport in Bangalore, and they used to take place in what are these called garadis, or wrestling gymnasiums. So these matches were held regularly in Bangalore. There were also matches inviting international players from Pakistan, Nepal, Afghanistan have come to Bangalore to take part in this wrestling matches. And at one time, there were 52 of these garadis in Bangalore. Today, I'm told there are just about 10. And I think it's losing its popularity to the mat wrestling, which has become an international and Olympic sport. Okay, so those are all the old games. Let's move on to something modern, and I think which everybody is a fan of these days. That's cricket. So looking into the history of cricket, it was sort of played by the Englishmen from the time they arrived here in the 1800s in Bangalore. And it soon became a very popular game. And there were, even the local Indians began to take to the game, but, they were not allowed to play in all the big grounds, or rather the few grounds that were in Bangalore, like the RSI, the Indian Gymkhana, and later the Central College grounds. But the first proper matches that were played in Bangalore were between the British Army officers stationed in the cantonment versus the officers of the Kolar goldfields. And that was played in what was the RSI grounds those days was called the European Gymkhana. So the matches were played there. And sometimes these guys from here went to KGF and played matches at what is called the Urgaon grounds. And there were also matches played between the Bangalore United Bus Club, which is the Bangalore club, and the Madras Cricket Club. Often those matches were played. But cricket in Bangalore got a big boost thanks to this English gentleman who was the principal of Central College. His name was J.G. Tate. And he began encouraging the game in a big way. He formed the Central College team, and he regularly encouraged these matches of, between the college team and the European Gymkhana, the British officers or the KGF teams, all of that. So there was no formal structure or any apex body to basically manage cricket at that time. So it was just loosely played among all these various clubs. And that's how cricket just carried on. But gradually, a lot of, because of these matches, a lot of Indians came to be seen and also recognized as good cricket players. And, I think you should be beaming with pride to hear that in 1903, as early as 1903, B. Jairam, a Bangalore cricketer, he was selected to play for the London County Club alongside none other than W.G. Grace. He's one of India's and cricket's great. I mean, W.G. Grace is one of cricket's greatest names. So Bangalore Jairam went to London to play these county matches. And then in 1911, he was the only person from Bangalore who was in the first India 11 cricket team that toured England. And apparently he did very well there. So I think B. Jairam can rightly be called Bangalore's first cricket hero. In fact, Jairam was the boyhood hero of statesman philosopher Rajagopalachari. And this little nugget I found from one of Ram Guha's essays. Apart from Bangalore Jairam, of course, there were many cricketers, but I'd like to make a mention of a few other cricketers who made a mark in pre-independent India. And these are cricketers from Bangalore. P.K. Garudachar, the legendary Karnataka cricket captain, who even after quitting the game gave so much of himself to cricket. Benjamin Frank, M.G. Vijayasarthi, B.R. Nagaraja Rao, P.A. Kanikam, Y.S. Ramaswamy, after whom there's a cricket tournament, V.M. Mudaya, K. Timmapaya. He was Mysore, then Karnataka was known as, Mysore's first Ranji Trophy centurion. So after that, in 1934, the Mysore State Cricket Association formed, and that brought about some kind of order, regulation, and organization of matches and so on. And they had a 5-year league tournament, so it gave an opportunity to a lot of young cricketers, schoolboys, to often even play with some seniors. And as I mentioned, the venues were RSI grounds, the Indian Gymkhana, and of course the Central College ground, which was owned by the jail authorities. And then the Central College somehow spoke to the jail authorities and managed to get it on lease, and they sort of had matches regularly. And Ranji Trophy matches, which most of us remember, happened at the Central College grounds. But fortunately, Bangalore cricket took off in a big way also because all these schools which I had mentioned earlier that started in the 1800s, they all had good grounds, fairly big grounds to play cricket matches. And I think that also helped in grooming a lot of cricketers and helping the game itself grow. Then there was this Kantirava Stadium. Before it was built, the open space there was also used to play for playing cricket. So wherever there was any open space in Bangalore, you could just find people, youngsters, playing cricket. If Bangalore threw forth so many cricketers, that to state level, national level, and who have made a mark internationally too, it's also because of the private cricket clubs. Bangalore had private cricket clubs as early as the 1920s. The oldest cricket club is BUCC, Bangalore United Cricket Club, which was formed with a merger of Bangalore Occasionals and Bangalore Amateurs. That was in 1926. And then came Friends Union Cricket Club. And then you had Bangalore Cricketers, City Cricketers, Swastik Union, and various other cricket teams followed. So even after cricket got regulated through the association and all of that, there were many in Bangalore who gave their utmost to cricket. And some of them are Safi Darsha, Keki Tarapur, G. Kasturi Rangan, L.T. Nagaraj, V.T. Krishnamurthy, B.N. Premachandra, the Patels of Gandhinagar, K.S. Vishwanath, Puttana Kesi, N. Doraiswamy, and a couple of others. Too many to name, but I think history must remember these gentlemen who contributed immensely to promote the game of cricket. When you talk about cricket in Bangalore, you can't forget this extraordinary gentleman who gave up a very lucrative profession of being a lawyer to take up administration. He put his heart and soul into cricket. And he didn't play cricket, but was a very able administrator. And that helped him get the top job at BCCI, the Board of Control for Cricket in India. And it is not for nothing that the International Cricket Stadium in Bangalore is named after him. You all must have guessed it. M. Chinnaswamy. So when the topic of women's cricket comes up now, where it started only in the 70s. And when the first Indian team was being formed, they couldn't find a woman captain in Delhi, nor in Bombay, nor in Calcutta, nor in Madras. They found a woman in Bangalore, young 20-something from Bangalore to lead the Indian cricket team. And that was Shanta Rangaswamy. She was a pioneering cricketer who gave enough and more to cricket. After her quitting the game, she even coached, and she was an official in various matches, doing commentary and all of that. But and also, I mean, there's so much to talk about women's cricket too. But I think due to paucity of time, I have to cut short a bit. But when the junior nationals cricket for women started, the very first tournament, all India level, was won by Karnataka, which had many Bangalore girls. And there were other women cricketers like Kalpana Venkatachar, Mukta Algeri, and Pushpa Kumar, who contributed a lot to women's cricket. So again, when you talk about hockey, I think it's just like cricket, which found its roots during the colonial days, because the hockey matches were largely played by the British officers, the British soldiers, as well as the civilians here in Bangalore. And these were played at the Sullivan Police Grounds and also the Reserve Police Grounds. But somehow after the 1900s, hockey became very popular in Bangalore, and many schools encouraged hockey. So some schools had even 2 or 3 teams, and there were a lot of matches that were played. And India took part in the Olympics for the first time with their hockey participation in 1928. But, there were no Bangaloreans in the team. And it took a couple of decades later for 2 Bangaloreans to find a place in the Indian team for the 1952 Helsinki Olympics. And those 2 were Muniswamy Rajgopal, who he was nicknamed the Artful Dodger for his phenomenal stick work, and Chinnadurai Deshmuthu, a goalkeeper. And after them came Vijay Peter, an excellent hockey player from MEG. He was from Bangalore, and he represented India in 3 successive Olympics. Of course, after Vijay Peter, late 60s, early 70s, you had our famous MP Ganesh, PP Govinda, MM Somaya, Ashish Ballal, Jude Felix, AB Subaya, all these Bangalore boys who went on to make a name for themselves in the field of hockey. And I think here credit ought to be given to the public sector organizations like HAL, ITI, BEL, and CIL, LRD. They all had hockey teams. They offered jobs to good hockey players and encouraged them to continue playing and giving them all the facilities that they needed. Talking about now women's hockey, there's nothing like the golden age of women's hockey in Bangalore and Karnataka of the 60s. That hasn't been replicated till today. There were very good teams in Bangalore. Somehow women's hockey took off in a big way right from the 50s, from the early independent days. And schools and clubs, there were many clubs in Bangalore, and a lot of women played hockey. And this led to having a very strong state hockey team. Most of the players in the state hockey team were from Bangalore. And from 1961 till 67, nobody could beat Karnataka with most of the Bangalore players. and they won the national hockey tournament continuously without conceding a defeat. And the newspaper reports of the time said that at that time, if Bangalore, Karnataka had to send a team A and team B, both would come to the finals. Such was the high standard of the game. And when the Indian team was selected in the 60s, throughout, there were 7 women from Bangalore who were in the Indian team, including the 3 famous Brito sisters. So I think here again, I would attribute much credit to the women coaches of the time, like Doreen Suarez, Marjorie Suarez, Barbara Webster. They gave their entire life to coaching women, And then later you had Vivi Naidu and Vijay De Cruz. So quickly on football, nowadays when we talk about football, it's mostly about West Bengal, Kerala, Goa, Haryana, and all these kind of teams winning, except I think for one title recently at the national level. Karnataka has never been on the football landscape for decades. But let's go back in time, to the early 1900s, mid 1900s. Bangalore had an extremely vibrant football culture. There were many teams here, some excellent football players. And, I think soon after independence, the first nationals that were held, I think in 1947-48, Karnataka team, which had most Bangalore players, won the Santosh Trophy. And then they continued either being winners or runners-up in the 50s and 60s. But after that, they just lost it. Again, it was, some reports say that football came partly because of the British, but there are other reports that said that football was played from even times before the British landed in Bangalore. And I think one should tend to believe that because, there are certain pockets of Bangalore, like in the Alsur area, Austin Town, Vivek Nagar, Fraser Town, where football has been played for ages. And most of the top football players in the 40s, 50s, and 60s came from these areas. And did you all know that there is a mini Brazil in Bangalore? Sorry? There you are. Good. That's in Gautampura, which is near Alsur. This Gautampura was earlier known as gun troops during the British times because, there's that 515 Army base workshop there nearby. And when you walk past that, you can draw the connection. And in this place called Gautampura, it was like the nursery for football. Even today, you go anytime during especially World Cup matches or major football tournaments, there's football on every street, in every ground, in every little space that you find. It's such a popular game. There's also a statue of Brazilian football legend Pelé in Gautampura. So that's the kind of craze football has in this area. And, it was from these areas of, the cantonment that some of the football players were part of these football clubs in the 40s and 50s, such as Bangalore Blues, Bangalore Sporting, Bangalore Muslims, and the Mysore Rovers. And they dished out quality stuff. Even when they played at the Olympics, people were really scared of them. In the very first Olympics in 1948, after independence, the entire Indian football team was barefoot. They had no boots. And out of the 11, 7 were from Bangalore. And these guys had good practice playing with Italian soldiers in Bangalore who were brought to Bangalore by the British. And these Italian soldiers started playing football with the people who worked with them and people in their homes or anybody who was interested in playing football. So I think playing barefoot, they became tougher and, they did pretty well. So that's pretty much about football. I'd just like to mention some of the first Olympians from India, from Bangalore: S.A. Bashir, Anthony, Kanaya, Raman, and T. Shanmugam, all of whom were from Austin Town or Gautampura. Similarly, Ulaganathan, Ahmed Khan, he was twice Olympian, and K.V. Vardharaj and Carlton Chapman. They were all Olympians. If ever you'll go to Swansea in Wales, do visit the council hall, and you'll find on the walls there a photograph of a Bangalore football player of the 40s, an Olympian called Vardharaj. The photo shows him receiving a key from the mayor of Swansea. He was given that honor because the mayor and the entire crowd, the local crowd, was so impressed by his game there when the Indian 11 outclassed the Welsh 11. And that was a big honor for Vardharaj, a Bangalorean. One more important thing about Bangalore is one of the oldest football tournaments was held in Bangalore. I'm sure most of you know the Stafford Challenge Cup. That was started by the Staffordshire Regiment in 1938. And teams from not only India, but even abroad, came for these matches. In Bangalore, even I remember when we were school kids, it was a must-see event. It used to take place in the Kantirava Stadium and probably even in the KSCA Stadium. But it was, the crowds that came and packed the stadiums, it was unbelievable because the matches were so engrossing, and you had teams from all over India, particularly from West Bengal and Goa, who had some very good players. Sometime in the 80s, there were these 3-4 teams that came from Iraq, and they came and really stole the scene here, winning a couple of tournaments. And one year, I think somewhere in the mid-80s, an Iraqi team won the Stafford Challenge Cup. And of course, the winner takes it, but brings it back next year for the next winner. When one of the Iraqi teams won it and went back to their home country, they never came back because they said it got destroyed in the Gulf War. So after that, in 93, this famous Stafford Challenge Cup had to just close. That was really sad. But I read in the newspapers recently that in 2023, they have sort of restarted this whole thing similar to the Stafford Challenge Cup. And I hope that is true and it carries on. Yeah, so that was about what happened to the cup in the Gulf War. But now from the Gulf War, let me take you back to the Second World War. Again, it was 1939, the Second World War had begun. And at that time, a Bangalore woman reaches the finals of the All India Singles Tennis Championships. And that was Laura Woodbridge. She was twice India's national singles champion and twice runner-up. She was all through living in Bangalore. She even passed away in Bangalore. But and she had left a long-lasting influence on a lot of players. Although she had a British passport, mind you, she continued to remain in Bangalore. And she was an extremely talented player who played in various championships in India as well as abroad. So women's tennis again, as well as men's tennis, started with the British playing, and then there were just a few clubs like the Bowring Institute, the Bangalore Club, the YMCA Club, and so on that had these tennis courts. So some of the Indians who were lucky enough managed to get access to these, and they went and played there. And there was also one in Coxtown. And that is where a resident of that area called Dechu Apaya Mola, she began playing there. Her mother used to play tennis in a sari and long sleeves blouse at that Coxtown tennis court. And Dechu, as a schoolgirl, took to tennis, did very well for herself, went on to win the national singles title for women in 1959. And she was ranked number 1 from 59 to 62. And as you all know, Dechu Appaya is the famous singer Bidu Appaya's older sister. She's 84. In fact, she messaged me today saying, I'm unable to come because I'm not feeling too well. But even now, she plays tennis at the Bangalore club. That's Dechu Appaya. Yeah, she was really one of those trailblazers at that time. And apart from Laura Woodbridge and Dechu Appaya, there was nobody who really went up to the national level to win the singles title. But then in early 70 came Udaya Kumar, another lady from Bangalore, who won the singles title once. So, so that's pretty much about tennis and particularly women's tennis. But when we talk about men's tennis, there weren't too many who did very well in tennis, although even men played tennis quite a lot in Bangalore. But there was this one tennis player called B.R. Kapinapati who dominated tennis in Bangalore for 2 decades. He was Karnataka's number 1, and he was ranked number 4 in India. After he hung his rackets, he continued to give all of himself to tennis. He coached, he became an umpire, referee, he promoted the game, he traveled with the teams, he did everything that he could do, and his contribution to tennis is commendable. So that's about Kapinapati. A last little bit about tennis is in 1970, I'm sure many of you would remember, Bangalore shot into international prominence because of this Davis Cup tie between India and Australia in Bangalore at the Kabaddi Park courts. And, that Davis Cup tie was won by India. And it was a huge thing, for India to go to the next level. And I remember these Australian as well as the Indian players used to practice at the Bangalore club. And my dad took me and my brother, we were in school at that time, took us to see them practicing at Bangalore club. And it was one of those real great fanboy moments which one never forgets in life. You could see up close Ray Ruffles and John Alexander hitting the ball, and Jaideep Mukherjee and Premjit Lal, both of them hitting the ball. And on the sides, you saw the non-playing captains Neil Fraser and Ramanathan Krishnan sitting and watching their wards playing. And there were about 20-25 fans waiting with autographs waiting for Ramanathan Krishnan and Neil Fraser to sign. And some of them were lucky, but I think when it was halfway down, the security came and said everybody has to leave, and we were pushed back. So it was really a thrilling time, and these are moments of Bangalore sports that stay with you for a long time. Now, badminton, you take any sport, as I said earlier, Bangalore has thrown forth a national, international champion. And badminton too, when it started here during the British days, it was largely confined to, within certain clubs and only in the cantonment area, particularly in certain clubs, defense campuses where they had courts. And, not everybody had access to those kind of clubs. And there were a few open courts. One was near St. Patrick's Church, and another was somewhere here near the GPO on Queen's Road. So there, a lot of Indians used to go and practice outdoor. But things changed in 1949 when the Canara Union building decided to build a hall next to the Union building. Basically, they were building a hall to host weddings and functions or, any kind of civic event. And that time, Prakash Padukone's father, spoke to the Canara Union people and told them, if you all can make the hall a little bigger to accommodate a badminton court. And I think that was a very good move. And of course, the rest is history. You know, with that court there, and then the Malleshwaram Association courts, a lot of tournaments took place. The South Zone Inter-University tournaments also happened there. And many took to badminton, men and women in Bangalore, and many clubs like ITI and BEL also started badminton. Interestingly, many women started coming to play in the evenings, and they started playing in saris. And I must mention, one of them was Tripura Vishwanath. She dominated the scene for nearly about 2 decades in the 60s. And, she took to badminton rather late, in her mid-20s, after the birth of her son. And later, she became so good that she even she was good enough to play a state tournament final against her daughter, Pushpa, in 1973. And later, this is even better. At the Nationals, mother played alongside daughter in the doubles. And the organizers announced that it was the first such incident in the history of Indian badminton. That's the spirit of Bangalore. So, yeah. Of course, you had these kind of very good players, but none of them really challenged the national level players. It was only in 1969 that there were signs of one particular player emerging to make a name for himself at the national level. And of course, as you all know, that was Prakash Padukone. He won he started winning the junior nationals, the junior singles, the junior doubles. He won the junior and senior one particular year. Along with his brother, he won the doubles also. So they did, I think, Prakash Padukone really inspired many after him to take to the game. And therefore, after him also, we had a lot of players, but none went to the level that Prakash reached, badminton had such modest beginnings. And I think it is really noteworthy that this simple, quintessential gentleman from Malleshwaram played in the Malleshwaram courts, ran every day on the streets there, and went on to win the All England Badminton men's singles title. That's again, I think, a feather in Prakash's cap as well as in Bangalore's cap. So that's about badminton. Briefly on table tennis, of course, unlike lawn tennis, I think table tennis got more patronage and support post-independence. And it sort of took off in a fairly big way because there was YMCA had a lot of table tennis tables, facilities for players to play. And one of the earliest TT champions from Karnataka, that is also from Bangalore, was Krishna Nagaraj. He's the only Indian to reach the quarterfinals of the World Table Tennis Championships in Tokyo in 1956. So that was in the 50s. Then, much after a decade, Bangalore had 2 other national champions. One was B. Sai Kumar and the other was Kabad Jayant. Both of them went on to win the single senior titles, and they'd won a lot of tournaments in India. Then at the same time in the 70s, there was this Arun Kumar, a youngster, barely 15. He went on to win the junior national singles title in India. And he also became Asian junior runner-up. And Arun Kumar is the son of, I had mentioned earlier, the tennis player B.R. Kapinapati. So Arun Kumar really did very well for himself, not maybe in tennis, but in table tennis. Today he lives in San Diego, and he's pursuing his career. And then, of course, you had among women, Lakshmi Karanth was a very good table tennis player who represented India in various tournaments. And you had T.S. Ramkumar. He rose to become a national junior rank player and coach of the Indian junior team. Also, I think I saw Ramkumar somewhere here today. He must be here today. Oh, thank you. Right. Yeah. So there were many who played. There are so many other names because after them, these are all some of the pioneering tennis players up to the 70s. And since I'm talking about the sporting history of Bangalore, I'm restricting myself largely to some of the older players and teams. Yeah. Now, I cannot forget two players from Bangalore who really did extremely well at the national level. One was Usha Sundarraj. She was a shining star of the 60s and 70s, and she won the national table tennis singles title for women 5 times, and she was runner-up 7 times. Nobody across India could beat her. And, I think the last single she won was in 69. That's right. After that, for 50 years, it took 50 years for another Bangalore girl to win the national singles title. That was Archana Kamath. So, what happened to table tennis in between? That's a mystery. But Usha was another like Prakash Padukone, who grew up in Malleshwaram, a simple girl who played table tennis for fun, then took it up seriously and went on to make a name for herself. Another 60s star was Saraswati Rao. She was also a late starter who began playing at the age of 22 and without much formal coaching, but she went on to represent India at many international tournaments. Some of you may have seen her video. So I think in 2017, a video went viral of this Saraswati Rao. She was 69 and she was playing table tennis in a sari. And I think it attracted some 4 million views. Last but not least, K. Narayana Murthy was one of the most passionate and dedicated table tennis coaches and mentors from Bangalore. He also did a lot. He even was instrumental in forming the Jayanagar Table Tennis Club and, sponsored a lot of tournaments. That's table tennis. Briefly on when you talk about basketball, you have to give credit to the YMCA because the YMCA has always been involved in sports and encouraging sports. And in Bangalore, they did a lot for many certain disciplines. But particularly for basketball, the YMCA contributed a lot. And because of the YMCA's involvement and tournaments that they held, a lot of other clubs started, getting formed, like Devanga Union, National Sports Club, Bharat Union, Eagles Club, Beagles. They were all very good clubs, and Bangalore, Karnataka teams did extremely well at the nationals. The men and women used to generally qualify for the semi-finals or finals. And even at the school and club levels, Bangalore has a tradition of basketball, and that continues even today. And we had even Olympians like Dilip Gurumurthy, S.V. Rangadev, and Jairaj from Bangalore who played for India. But again, Bangalore women beat the men when it came to basketball because none of the men went on to lead India as India's captains. But 2 women from Bangalore, Nandini Basappa and Jaivanti Shah, both of them led India in international basketball tournaments. And at 60, these 2 women continue to coach the Mount Carmel's basketball team. Is any of them here today, Nandini or Jaivanti? No. Okay. Again, another sport here today. I think 2 days ago also we read about this young champion making international headlines, winning the Asian title. And that was Pankaj Advani, billiards and snooker. If today he is such a good player and winning titles non-stop by the dozens in various international tournaments, thanks go to his mentor and guru, Arvind Savur. Arvind Savur is one of the pioneering cue sports guys from Bangalore who was called the father of Indian snooker. He began playing snooker in the 40s, 50s, and he went on to become the national champion in India. And he was telling me that, Bangalore had a very rich culture of cue sports. He said there were so many billiards and snooker parlors all over Bangalore. And he mentioned some names like Greens, Beck's, Bull and Bash, and such parlors where right from 10 o'clock in the morning till past midnight, players would just keep, potting and doing all kinds of things. Women, of course, took up cue sports a little late here because it started late in India. But even so, Usha Rao and Asha Vaswani, they set the trend here in Bangalore and helped the other women after them to pick up the cue. Usha went on to win the very first nationals in 1987. And after that, you had Farah Khan and then Chitra Magimyaraj, Umadevi Nagaraj, Varsha Sanjeev. So all of them came next. Now, one of the last sports that I want to talk about is athletics. Alphabetically, I should have started with athletics. But, I kept it for the end because Bangalore's athletes are a class apart. I don't mind saying that again. They are a class apart. Athletics, as I had said earlier, it was a big deal in Bangalore right from the 1900s. Athletic meets were held in schools, clubs, colleges, and India as an independent nation began taking part in the Olympics soon after independence. In the very first 1948 Olympics, two Bangalore boys who studied in Baldwin's Boys' School went for the Olympics in 1948. One was Eric Prabhakar. He reached the quarterfinals in the 100 meters. And he was also a national champion. And the interesting thing about Eric Prabhakar is he was also India's first Rhodes Scholar. Talk about brawn and brain. The other Bangalore boy was Henry Ribello, who represented India in the nationals and went for the London Olympics, taking part in triple jump. He was a medal prospect, but he had an injury and he had to be carried off the stretcher. Otherwise, Henry Ribello would have definitely won the medal. That was in 48. Next came, the next Olympian was in 1964 Rome Olympics, Kenneth Powell from Bangalore, who was a very good sprinter who ruled the tracks for many years. He took part in even in the Asian Games, and he's also a medalist, I think, in the relays. But the late 60s and 70s saw many athletes, taking up athletics and doing very well for themselves. And some of Bangalore's most outstanding athletes were C.M. Muthaya, the decathlete, N. Lingappa, who was also a coach, P.C. Ponnappa. I think Ponnappa is here today. Ponnappa, stand up, let people see you. He's an Asian medalist. David Premnath, Uday Prabhu, Satish Pillai, they all have taken part in the Asian Games and have won laurels for our state, city, and India. Now, talking about women, again, they tend to outbeat the men in Bangalore, as always. The women athletes of Bangalore are known for their many accomplishments. Again, I'll start from post-independence, which began with Marjorie Suarez, who was, later a sports teacher at Bishop Cotton Girls' School. She was a top-class athlete. She was also a state basketball captain and a state hockey player. And she represented India in the very first Asian Games. Remember, first Asian Games in 1951, a Bangalore girl taking part. That was Marjorie Suarez. She was the state champion for many years and devoted her entire life to the cause of sports as PT teacher for 40 years at Bishop Cotton Girls' School. What a spirited woman. And have you heard of anyone running before they are born? I know it seems a bit out of straight out of Ripley's Believe It or Not, but that's Diana Saim Tiwari. You know, the story goes that her mother, Phyllis, was 3 months pregnant with Diana. And they were part of the railway colony. And during an inter-railway meet, the women's relay team ran short of one woman runner. So Diana's mother, who was pregnant 3 months with Diana, was asked to run. She started the relay. She gave them the lead, and they went on to win. And then that's how Diana's first race was. She was a born athlete in a sense, and she went on to become India's national champion in athletics, in sprints as well as in jumps. And she was one of the torchbearers for the Asian Games 1982, if you all had watched her on TV. Around the same time, also in the 50s, Maki Pantaki, I'd like to mention, a Parsi woman from Bangalore who started making headlines in hockey and athletics. And later in the 80s, she took part in the veterans meet. And she took part in even international levels. So after Diana, Bangalore's athletes continued to rule the track at the nationals, particularly the late 60s and 70s. It was always a Bangalore girl winning the 100-meter sprint. And that was none other than Nirmala Uttaya, who's sitting right here next to her husband, PC Kornappa. Nirmala, please stand. Nirmala was from Sacred Heart, one of the oldest schools in Bangalore, Sacred Heart Girls' School and Mount Carmel's College. And she was called the golden girl of the tracks, consistently winning the sprints. And her daughter, of course, their daughter, Aarti Ponnappa, is a very good tennis player. Alongside Nirmala, their contemporaries were also two other well-known athletes, Irene Saldana Mascarenhas and Angel Mary Joseph. They were both all-round athletes famed for their staying power, and they also had represented India internationally. Then you had Anita Sood, also from Sacred Hearts and Mount Carmel's, who was the national high jump champion. But it was athletes like Nirmala, Irene, Anita who inspired the next generation of athletes like Ashwini Nachappa and Reeth Abraham to carry forward this torch of the 100 sprints and, jumps or whatever. And Bangalore continues to rule the tracks even until a few years ago. And uniquely, I don't think any other state has produced so many women athletes as Bangalore has. They have done extremely well consistently from the 50s until the 70s, 80s, even the 90s. And always it was the fastest woman would be from Bangalore. Right from Diana Saim to Nirmala Uttaya and then to Ashwini Nachappa and, various others. Now, of course, women did very well, but the icing on the cake now is a woman from Bangalore went on to become the Union Sports Minister. Clearly a nod to the achievements of Bangalore women, and that was Margaret Alva. Talk of the spirit of Bangalore. So what is about Bangalore that, and sports that our city can sort of boast about and talk of its so many achievements? And that too at a time when facilities were just basic, These sportsmen and women whom I've largely spoken about used to wake up at 5 a.m., cycle to Kantirava Stadium or to the cricket grounds or hockey grounds or to the clubs and practice, then come back cycling, go back to school or college. After school and college, again practice. I mean, they gave themselves totally to sports. And I think that was how they made it to the top. And I think it was that indefatigable spirit in them that, helped them. One of the reasons is also the moderate climate of Bangalore, which had pleasant summers and mild winters, and it enabled sporting activity throughout the year. And a lot of encouragement was also given by schools and colleges, and particularly public sector units, banks, and others. And I think all this contributed to this growing sports culture in Bangalore. Um, Also in Bangalore, television came late. So I think sports and games was the big pastime. Thank God for that. Everybody played and it was all outdoor. And I would think that has contributed also to, so many sports persons from Bangalore. Last but not the least, there were many benefactors, patrons, coaches, and even these sports goods shops, which played a vital role in making Bangalore such a great sports center with so many top sports persons. We had those days Rakra Sports, South Indian Sports, Arun Sports, Olympic Sports, and of course Hat-Trick Sports as well. I mean, these shops enabled you to pick up whatever you wanted, the tools for your game, and it helped. More importantly, the media, let's not forget, contributed its bit. Deccan Herald and sister publication Prajavani was the lone English daily and Kannada daily. And they provided extensive coverage of sports right from 48 when the paper started. They used to cover every school sports meet, every club sports meet, and even national, international meets. And of course, even today, their coverage of sports is very good. So, when you talk about the role that the media played, I think I cannot but mention the name of Mr. K.A. Netkalapa, who was the editor and partly, belonged to the family that owned Deccan Herald. He was a great patron of sports who contributed immensely to the development of various sports in Bangalore. Even the badminton hall in Malleshwaram, which Prakash Padukone's father had requested the Canara Union to build, Netkalapa had a hand there. And he also used to sponsor a lot of sports persons who really felt they were unable to go to participate in some international or national tournament. And in fact, after Netkalapa passed away, a memorial athletic meet was held in Bangalore. And my little bit, I must say, I took part in that first Netkalapa Memorial Meet, and I won the bronze in the under 17 hurdles. So that was a little bit. But yes, I think we ought to give much credit to K.A. Netkalapa. And I'm glad that Netkalapa's son, Shant Kumar, who's the editor of Prajavani, is here today. So Deccan Herald also had some very good sports journalists at the time, like Leslie Wilson Sr., Ron Hendricks, Arvindam. They were so versatile. They covered all kinds of sports. And we also had philanthropists such as Gina Boy Devidas, J.B. Mallaradhya, and others. So I think I've come almost to the end of my talk. I think it's also an important thing to mention is the spectator interest in Bangalore. When there was no television, I think any match, be it basketball, cricket, hockey, football, spectators would throng the stadiums and they would go and cheer the players. They would be present. Some of them would even give them gifts if they were impressed by the players. So, any kind of match had a huge spectator interest, and I think that did a lot for the morale of the players too, because fans consume sports live those days, unlike today where everybody prefers watching television. Remember the days when we used to go for cricket matches? It was like a 4-5 day excursion, carrying your lunch boxes, fruits, water, and generally having a whale of a time in the cricket stadium. I mean, those are the joys of cricket, and the electrifying atmosphere of those days are unforgettable. And the kind of fan culture that we have in Bangalore, I think, was a huge shot in the arm for everyone. Today, it's not the same. Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot end without remembering Ravi Sondhi, in whose memory this lecture is held. As a teenager, I didn't know Ravi Sondhi, but I knew his sports goods shop Hat-Trick, which was on Church Street and Gandhinagar. um, that I think one of the Gandhinagar shop, if I'm right, was inaugurated by Mr. Chinnaswamy, right? And in the 70s, Bangalore didn't have these mega sports goods shops like Decathlon and others, and it was these little shops like Hat Trick and others, that were very welcoming, and you could just go and pick up a hockey stick or a cricket bat or a ball, and even talk to the owners who'd give you good advice on what kind of equipment you should buy. And Ravi Sondhi was not just a businessman or another ordinary retailer. He was a passionate sportsman and also a patron of sports whose first love was cricket. As a long-standing president of one of the oldest cricket clubs of Bangalore, the Friends Union Cricket Club, his contribution to cricket is exceptional. In fact, I read somewhere that Rahul Dravid referred to Mr. Ravi Sondhi as the grand old man of Bangalore cricket. In conclusion, let's not forget the rich history and legacy of Bangalore. We must be proud of our sportspersons and those involved in sports in some way or the other in putting Bangalore on the national and international map. There's all the stories of these sportspersons. They underline the endurance of not only the human spirit, but also the spirit of Bangalore. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stanley, for that marvelously wide sweep of Bangalore sport across time, across institutions, and across different sport. And like Tokyo Manoharan, we are now going to call you Bangalore Carvalho.
Thank you.
We have some time for responses. So, yeah, Manav, and then I'll just come to you, sir.
Thank you, Stanley. I have a statement and then a question related to it. So, one of the sports that you didn't mention, in which Bangalore and Karnataka has done exceedingly well, and one that I personally participate in, is swimming. And
I haven't even mentioned about chess, cycling, and some other games.
In the early 80s and 90s, Bangalore had fantastic pools in Jayanagar, Baswangudi, Sankey, and Alsur, all of which were 50-meter Olympic-sized pools, which even today you don't find a lot in different parts of the world. I just wanted to understand from you why a city, and all of us used to go swimming very early in the morning, much against our will. We were willingly dragged by our parents. Why a city like Bangalore, which had freezing water in the pools, most of the year, developed into such a great swimming hotspot. I mean, now, of course, thanks to the likes of Mr. Jagdale and, several other people, but not just the swimmers, but even the coaches, Mr. Nihar Amin, Mr. Mohite, so many of them came out of the Bangalore climate, so to speak. I mean, why?
I must apologize at the outset for having omitted swimming. But I think one of the reasons was I was given 40 to 45 minutes. And,
You took us into extra time, by the way.
I've exceeded that, well exceeded that. So I had done a little bit of research on swimming and, some of the players of the time, and also chess and cycling and I think one or two other sports. But I said I have to, I just kept chopping a little bit here and there. But sorry about that. I should have actually, maybe some other time. I'll probably
maybe part 2, Stanley, next year.
Yeah, hopefully.
We have a question there, yeah, and then Siddharth.
Good. Yeah. Thank you for sharing lovely anecdotes and thank you for sharing those lovely anecdotes and all the stories of individual brilliance and also sacrifice. One of the players you mentioned was a tennis player, Udaya Kumar. She happens to be my cousin.
Oh.
And I know that she would get up at 4:30 in the morning and cycle, to play tennis. So that story kind of had a lot of, it did resonate. My question to you is: Bangalore has got such a rich sporting, culture and tradition. I've heard of a sports museum in Calcutta, which is there, which is a tribute to the sports people. So, is there a reason not to have a sports museum in Bangalore to recognize all these heroes? And is there a way to go about doing this? Because that will kind of preserve the memory and be an inspiration to the new sports.
Thank you for that little bit about Udaya Kumar. That was the spirit of Bangalore, getting up at 4:30 and going cycling and all of that. But it would be a great idea to have a museum of Bangalore, and have little bits, just like any other museum, have everything about sports persons of Bangalore. I think we should consider that. Maybe we should suggest that to some businessman or philanthropist or probably the sports minister or
My brother
yeah,
has deep pocket.
Ravina. That would be a sports museum in Bangalore.
So that
Well, I'm sure it'll come. Yeah.
Thank you, Sandhu. Wonderful session. Thank you so much. I just had a question on on the issue of the fact that you said about the colonial history and that this very English British ethic of now whether they actually practice it or not is another thing, but of good order, gentlemen. That they say what play up, and play the game, right? Just to ask that question in terms of Bangalore's sense of fairness. And I'd just like to conclude by reading something that I had pulled out for Aditya's benefit some years ago. This is from my alma mater's centenary edition. I went to the rival school down the road from where Aditya went.
Which one?
Right, St. Joseph's.
Okay.
And this is Humayun Mirza writing in 1958 about the centenary sports which still occurs between the two schools. And I quote, "No praise is too high for Bishop Cotton's. I had rarely seen a team play a losing game which they had as much a right to win as we did, with such cheerfulness and such friendliness. They did lose, though. This is a supreme test of character, and I feel that I have not the right to leave unrecorded here what redounds to the everlasting credit of Canon Elphick's and Mr. C.N. Weston's boys. Your thoughts on some fair play in sport in Bangalore?" Thank you.
I'm not sure if I can comment on this, any specific instance, but I think by and large, Bangalore is known for fair play. Take any game. Now, for instance, I remember when I interviewed the late Kenneth Powell, the athlete, he had told me that if at all he ran a race, those days they didn't have all these electronic starting blocks or cameras and all of that, right? So if he started before the gun, if he jumped the gun, he would never run the race because they would never call you back really that time. If there was just a microsecond difference, today it's very visible and they can catch you. But he said, even his contemporaries, if they started before, then, and if everybody ran, they would never complete the race. I mean, that kind of fair play is something that is, I don't know how many sports people really sort of follow, but that was one instance that I remember. Yeah.
I just wanted to mention R.J. Reynolds of Bishop Cotton's boys, who is the hockey coach and an Olympian. I'm not sure if he was a gold medalist or not. I've heard that he was a gold medalist, but because you mentioned the hockey history, but you didn't mention him.
Oh, okay. I'm sure I've omitted quite a few names.
R.J. Allen, sorry. That's right, goalkeeper.
Yeah. So there was also, if you'll know, Wes Pace, Leander Pace's father, who studied in Joseph's Boys, right? So, but they moved over to Calcutta and so on. So like that, there are a lot of people who were not, and I've focused more on the historical aspects of sports in Bangalore because today they get enough and more of media attention. But ask the sports persons like Nirmala, PC and others, Ram Kumar, I mean, they never got this kind of attention on social media. There was no social media. Yeah.
So we
Yes,
have
sir.
a batting order here now because there are many hands.
Here.
Yeah, Sia, 1 second, sir. Coming to you. Sia has a question at the back. Sian and Karthik. Answered? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sia. I'm just coming there.
Hi, sir. First of all, thank you for being here. We all appreciate your time. My question is, in a city so intertwined with sports culture, how can we as a community come together to best support our athletes and to amplify their voices to create an environment where sports can thrive and be celebrated?
So what was the question, please? I didn't get it. It was a bit.
Sorry. In a city so intertwined with sports culture, how can we as a community come together to best support our athletes and amplify their voices to create an environment where sports can thrive and be celebrated? How can communities celebrate athletes and amplify their voices?
Thank you for that. In many ways, I think the community has a big role to play by, encouraging them. You don't have to shower them with gifts, money, or whatever after they have won, but just encourage, provide the facilities. And I think there are a lot of community kind of organizations, maybe they're based on different religions or different whatever, various aspects. But I think encouragement is the first thing that communities need to do. And they've got to start young. It's not easy for sports persons in today's extremely competitive environment to take up sports late and make it big. You have to start young, and I think that is crucial. But yeah, I think communities can do a lot more for sports persons, particularly I think in rural areas, and they've got to identify talent, and I think that's left to also the schools in a sense.
Yeah, we have a question at the back.
Talk about wrestling and particularly Gardi Mane, and I know that there's one like right here.
Shivaji Nagar.
Yeah. Where they sell biryani to be able to.
Oh yes, of course.
But something that I was thinking about is John Jairaj and Tiglat Pete's John Jairaj who came out of Gardi Mane, and I tried to look up where they went. What happened to them? You know anything?
The wrestlers?
Yeah.
Some of them have retired and they undertake coaching. That's what I've gathered. But some, once a particular sports loses its popularity, then there's nothing much that they could do, right? They probably are pursuing their own other businesses or professions and doing whatever they want. But I know quite a few, there are just about 8 to 10 Garadis available in Bangalore right now, which are functioning. And some of the ones who had quit full-time professional wrestling are coaching.
Could you just pass the mic to Karthik in front of you, and then I'll come to Mr. Singh and General Naidu.
I had a response to Siddharth about the subject of fair play. I studied at the other St. Joseph's Indian High School. Through the 80s, our school would go to Delhi to take part in the Subrato Mukherjee football tournament. Every time they would come back with the fair play trophy, which meant all the boys were at the right age, unlike teams from other parts of the country who all had overage boys, So on the subject of fair play.
Well said, Karthik. Yes, Mr. Chiranjeev.
Stanley, is the city kind towards old, retired, and indigent athletes and sports persons?
I think we should ask Nirmala and PC before they leave. The question was whether the city is kind to former sports persons who have retired. They would be the best to answer. But from what I gather, I think... Sorry, Nimi, one second.
I would say yes, the city has been more than kind to us, because the way they had encouraged us those days when there was no social media and nothing at all, but the media always backed us and we'd have full page reporting of our events. So people would recognize us on the road and wish us as we'd go cycling at 5 in the morning to the stadiums and, wish us luck for our events and all those kind of things. So it always boosted us up and kept us encouraged.
But I think, Nirmala, the question was, how are sports persons treated after they have quit the game?
I
Are you all
think very
recognized by the associations and
well.
invited?
It was, yes, of course. Soon after we,
Indigenous sports. Indigen. Oh,
what?
Okay.
I didn't follow. What is
indigent, you meant, yeah. Sports persons who have fallen on bad times, who are financially not too well off. Are they looked after? Are there any funds started for them? Yeah. Now, I had mentioned, to answer your question, Mr. Singh, I had mentioned about one football player who played from Bangalore for 3 successive Olympics, Vijay Peter. He had fallen on really bad times. And there were articles about Vijay Peter's wife when he was sick and then when he passed away. She was wearing his gold medals, medals, bronze or silver or whatever, and saying, we don't have money and we are really fallen on hard times. We are struggling. And what is the use of these medals? That appeared in all the papers. It was sad. But I think the hockey associations and some of the senior hockey players created a fund and then, contributed a purse.
General Naidu has a question. And then Uncle, sorry. One second. I think Mr. Singh has a follow-up comment. One moment.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. I mean, I have personally seen such cases, very heartrending cases, even of known sports persons when sports departments I had it. You give them money out of CM's relief fund and all. But, the city needs to do more for such people. That's why my question was, is the city kind towards such people?
I think it's a bit mixed, I would say. I'm not sure how kind they are because people are having their own problems. If you talk to we'll have to talk to sports persons. But you read on and off some of these stories that appear in the media about, a sports person falling on bad days or unwell and needing money. But whenever they've, such news appears in the papers, I think there are people who reach out. But there isn't any fund or, any kind of a public charity or trust that is created specifically to look after sports persons who are really badly in need. I think that's a very good point, and maybe we should look into it. That is one point, and the museum in Bangalore is another that we should consider.
General Naidu, Uncle Manohar, and then, yeah.
I'd like to add a few comments.
Sure.
One is about the last question. I'm from a school in Bangalore, elementary school. We had an Olympic hockey goalkeeper. Christie was his name. He did very well, and he also fell into bad times. But we, the old boys, we created a big trust for him, and we supported him till his last days. A few other comments that I'd like to make. We talked about Gunboat Jack, not from research, but from a housemaster, Mr. Mitchell.
Okay.
He told me that Gunboat Jack came as a stowaway from USA, and he jumped off ship in Chennai.
Correct.
And then he came into Bangalore. And then the initial years, he did that well of death when motorcyclist goes round and round.
Mouth key, something it's called.
He did that for some.
Yeah.
He did that for some time for living. Then of course he sat in that.
I'm not surprised at all because he was a mystery man and he did different things, and you could expect him to do anything.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah.
That was it.
Yeah. But there is a book based on his life, and I think that has a lot of details. Yeah. Thank you.
You also talked about the RSI having supported cricket in the old days. I must tell you that the RSI even today has cricket being played on their very nice grounds. So you can sit at the bar with your chill beer and watch
the match
with their wives, like the way it should
I have
be played.
watched. Yeah. It's a great ground.
It's a great ground.
Yeah.
And about the MEG, it was a sports minded center earlier. Even now, it's the same. The emphasis on sports is immense in the MEG. They've taken on some new sports like watermanship. They do kayaking and they do rowing at the national level.
That's gratifying to know.
And with the coming in of the AC Center South, equestrian sports have taken a big leap.
Polo.
Thank you.
Right.
So if you could pass the mic to Uncle Manoharlal, you have a question? Yeah, we have a mic coming here, and then I'll come to you, Sumant. And then in fact, Stan, I'm going to have my sister ask you a question, and a connected one would be nepotism in sport.
Honestly, I'm so used to only asking questions in my work life that now I'm willing to answer.
We'll let you go with 3 more questions. Yeah. Yes, sir.
With your respect, at the end of me, KSC is a stadium. If you have spoken some few words, I will agree. And when I was being taken that Warrior Bahadur at Mysore College Road, I was the captain of Young Men Executive Club. Of course, though we were runners of tennis have been part on the stage. We have already played with KSC. I said, no, sir. I had come here. You had nephew. No, I was not seated here that time. You please come next time. I will get us predicted. Then from Surrey to Metro to Nassau, we will come. I mean, promoting like anything. And you can throw something.
Actually, Uncle Stan did mention Mr. Chinnaswamy. You did mention Mr. Chinnaswamy, but
of course,
please go ahead.
Thank you.
Sumant and then Ravina. One sec, Sumanta. Stan, is there anything you want to say? No.
No.
Sumant, yeah.
Thank you for your lecture, for your speech, for your walk through Bangalore's history. So my question here is like, we've all heard of say the great rivalries like Mohan Bagan, East United. So similarly, like you spoke about Bangalore, but like who was like the other cantonment region who was like Bangalore's biggest rival? And in particular, I remember a scene in like this Tamil movie called Sarpata Parambara. It's a boxing movie where they mentioned about the North Chennai boxers facing off the Bangalore boxers, or the army, the cantonment boxers from Bangalore. So just want to know who were our great rivals.
There were actually a lot of inter-regimental matches in Bangalore. You're talking about boxing, right? Yeah. So there were largely inter-regimental matches. And I think later when MEG sort of started encouraging boxing, they started holding tournaments and inviting only specific teams or specific boxers to come and take part in their bouts. But I'm not aware, I didn't come across any teams from Chennai or any other place coming to Bangalore, because I think my research largely focused on Bangalore, and wrestling, of course, you had only, the mud wrestling, which was very popular. But boxing, it was, of course, during the British days, whatever happened, and then later the MEG. And then after that, we've not seen too much, of boxing. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Stanley is, I think, the last question. I've just seen there's a crazy obsession with the youngsters and maybe some of my friends as well. What is your take on this pickleball and paddle? I don't understand how.
You put me in a pickle. That's the answer I can give you, because I don't know anything about those games. I'm so old world that, you ask me about boxing in the 1800s or polo or football, cricket and all of that, yes. But pickle, where you put me. Oh, of course, yeah.
One last. Oh, sorry, Smita. Okay. Can we do 2 questions with everyone's permission? Nimi, I can never refuse a Koshi's.
Oh, yeah. No, this is on a humorous note. Hi, Stanley.
Hi.
So Prem and I were sitting beside each other. We were fighting. Up Sacred Hearts. I'm from Sacred Hearts. Bishop Cotton's. So which school was the best through all the years? Tell us that.
Just climbing up.
Germans.
I think Germans was the best.
We'll let the speaker.
You know, we were given when I'm sure most of you remember, if there are any Germanites here, at least twice, at least in 2 years, probably when I was in 8th or 9th, our school came up to the finals of the Cottonian Shield. You're right, and we'd all come the day the finals were played. We would come and say our prayers and whatever at the assembly. And after the assembly was over, the principal would announce, "Okay, guys, today we are declaring a holiday, but go straight to Bishop Cotton's grounds and cheer our boys." And if we had to win, next day was a holiday. That was the spirit of Bangalore.
Those holidays were few and far.
Exactly. But then you all must have been getting a lot. Oh, Joseph's boys. Oh. Oh, God.
Had to be literally extracted out of this. Smita, please. We have to wrap up. We have to hand over the hall in 5 minutes. So, last question.
I think the mood of the room is really humorous. I had this question about the para-athletic. I'm working with them through my CSR, and Bangalore is really championing international star in wheelchair tennis, HIV/AIDS, a woman runner, and wheelchair badminton player girl. So would request you if you can write something about them as well.
When the Paralympics happened last year, soon after the Paris Olympics, I wrote a piece in the Deccan Herald about, they have to create a level playing field for para-athletes. When you look at, the facilities, the investments made for para-athletes, it's very, very low compared to the real athletes. And also look at the prize money and, the encouragement that the normal athletes get. Para-athletes in the Olympics did much better than the normal athletes. They won more medals.
So thank you, Smita, for that very thoughtful question. And thank you again, Stanley, for a marvelous. It's been a night to remember. Could I ask Ria and David to please honor you on behalf of the family? You have a little gift coming your way.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Leslie, Brian, and all of you for being here this time. We'll see you again next year. Thank you, Dilnawaz ma'am, and everyone from Kothari Hall and everyone who's worked with us tirelessly. Thank you. Good night.